All right, gents, take a look. We are on page 1094. I started saying 10,000. 10,000 is just because I got mixed up with how much money I owe. We're on page 1094. And the beginning Parsha of Vayeilech, which we have in such. I told you again this week, tomorrow I'm not going to be here because I have my grandson's bris. And then on, I was actually was holding him on Shabbos. It was very calm. I was holding him. It was great. He was calm. And then at a certain point, he just started. All of a sudden, went from 0 to 60, and he started wailing like a banshee. And immediately, I called my son and daughter-in-law. Hey guys, he's crying. That's when my job ends. Call the parents. At that point, that's where the parents go. As long as they're calm, I'm good.
And what about the son? Like, is there going to be the son?
I don't know yet. It could be. No, because there's a great grandfather on the other side. So sometimes you have to. I don't make an issue out of it. Because it depends how much. Okay. Take a look at the beginning of Parsha Vayeilech. And then, so tomorrow, Tuesday, I won't be here. Wednesday, we're going to speak a little bit about Rosh Hashanah. Okay. Vayeilech Moshe v'dabres advarim eila el kol Yisrael. Moshe goes and he speaks to the Jewish people, and he says the following. Vayomer aleim ben mea ve'esrim shana anochi hayom. I am 120 years old today. Lo uchal od lotzeis v'lovo. I can no longer go and come. And Rashi says, we'll see what Rashi says in a minute about that. V'Hashem amar elai lo savor es hayardein hazeh. Hashem said, you will not cross this Jordan River. And there are all sorts of midrashim how Moshe Rabbeinu begged and cried and groveled and pleaded. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Moshe Rabbeinu, you can't cross the Yarden. And Rashi says over here that Moshe Rabbeinu says that lo yuchal od lotzeis v'lovo, that you might have thought that he's gotten weak. He didn't get weak. Moshe Rabbeinu was just as strong at 120 as he ever was. But Hashem said you can't go into the land of Eretz Yisrael. And the Mefarshim say that when Hashem said you can't go into the land of Israel, it doesn't mean physically he can't go. This is a very, very big, there's a discussion over here. Lo yuchal means there's no way you could try, but you're not going to make it. There are commentaries here, several commentaries here that say, Lo uchal doesn't mean he can't go, it's you may not go. That this was also part of Moshe Rabbeinu's free choice. If Moshe Rabbeinu would have decided to, it's like telling you can't eat that piece of pork. Oh yeah, you want to see me? Says you, right? I told you it's like the mother said to her kid, she said, Chaim, you can't have that chocolate bar because you're fleishiks. He says, you want to see how fast I can become milchiks? So it doesn't, it's not that you can't go into the land. You're physically unable. If you try going across the Jordan River, I'm going to zap you. Says, I have a command from God. You're not allowed to go. And again, he's being tested on this. It's a test for Moshe Rabbeinu. You can't go. Now, you'll notice that he says that today I am 120 years old. And Rashi points out that I am that this is the day that I was born, is the day that I'm going to die. And we actually have a tradition that for somebody who dies on his birthday is a very big schus. It's a certain sign of righteousness. Why is that? Now, we don't always know that, because if you stop and think about it, you got a 1 out of 365 chance, right, of it happening. And suicide doesn't count. Hey everybody, look how righteous I am, and you perform honorable Harry Carey. I'm righteous, and that doesn't work. It has to be of natural causes. It has to be of natural. By the way, I once read about Harry Carey. It's a kind of a nasty thing because what they have to do is they don't just stab themselves. Honorable Harry Carey. You have to kind of stab and kind of. You have to do a whole. Yeah, I hate when that happens. Yeah, you have to do a whole what you call it with the what do you call it? That was the Harry Carey. Guy, right? A famous guy.
Harry Carey was a famous.
No, Harry Carey was this. There's a guy Harry Harry, no, as a matter of fact, now that you brought it up, Harry Carey happened to be the name of the White Sox announcer, who eventually became the Cubs announcer. That's after I left. Harry Carey, by the seventh inning of most games, was completely sloshed. He was the sports announcer, and you hear him, "Oh, this is Harry Carey." That's how it started out. And by the seventh, "Well, yeah, this is Harry Carey." And not only that, he would go on a ramble. Not when he was drunk. In the middle of the game, he'd all of a sudden just start talking. Like, "Yeah, I was with my pal Ed. We were fishing," and he'd go off, and all of a sudden, and there's a game going on. I was with my pal Ed. We were fishing, and triple play, and we were out. All of a sudden, he would just throw something all of a sudden, something dramatic, a grand slam, and we were out. I caught a big one. It was completely. And then when I left, I was despondent because we always used to laugh at him because the White Sox. Then when I left, he became the Cubs announcer, and his name was Harry Carey. That was his name. So Harry Carey is this. So the idea is that if somebody dies on their birthday, it's a statement. What do you think the statement is? What is it in? What do you say, Theo?
It is sort of a complete cycle.
Excellent. That means it's an indication he's completed his task in life. You've come full cycle. He's completed his task in life. That's why the commentaries say, what is this? A guy died on his birthday, so what do you do? Happy birthday? Well, not so happy. But what is it? It's a sign that he has completed whatever he's come full circle, and he's completed his task. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, as a matter of fact, he was born on Moshe Rabbeinu's birthday, which is why he was called Moshe. And then he was, I'll tell you this, a real creepy story, because he was already very close to death, and it was coming around Adar time, and he was very close to death. There was this boy, this would be really weird if he died on the 7th of Adar, which is the day he was born. Then they passed the 7th of Adar, and then he was nifter 5 days later. He was nifter on Tainus Esther, and Yud Gimel Adar, so he was within the week of his birthday. And then there was a discussion among the Rabbanim in America and Israel about when the funeral should be, because he was going to be buried in Israel. They brought the body the next day, so it was going to be on Purim in Israel. So there was a discussion, should it be on Purim, and the burial was going to be in Yerushalayim. Or should they wait an extra day? Should they wait the extra day, do it on Tesvav, which would be Purim in Yerushalayim? So the decision was that he should be buried on Yud Daled. And I have a neighbor who was on the flight bringing the body from New York. The flight stopped in Montreal. The plane took off, and after 2 hours developed engine trouble. So they had to turn back. So it was just enough time that they could no wait to get the body back to Israel for Yud Daled. And it came on Tesvav, and the funeral was on Purim in Yerushalayim, where Moshe finds it on Purim. And I remember that funeral was a very strange thing, because there were 300,000 people at the funeral for Moshe Feinstein, and we went straight from the funeral to eat a Purim Suda. Right? And if you remember 2 years ago, on Purim, Reb Chaim Kanievsky was nifter. Reb Chaim Kanievsky was nifter on Purim. So Reb Moshe Feinstein, it was like the Rabbanim decided it should be Yud Daled, but obviously there was some divine intervention that said, no, it's going to be on the 15th. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu was, what do you call it? And the funeral was on the 15th. But the idea of the completion, exactly what Theo says, it's a sign of coming full cycle. It's a sign that a person has completed his mission in life. Now Moshe Rabbeinu says to the Jewish people, I just want you to know that I can't, it's not that I can't, it's that I'm not allowed to, number one. Number two, there's a deeper idea here. And the deeper idea is Moshe Rabbeinu saying I can't means it's not, I want you to listen very carefully. Moshe Rabbeinu is saying it's not even within my realm of free choice. Now what does that mean? He does have free choice. What that means is there are different levels. Level one is, the Gemara says openly, that if a person sees something forbidden, we're not supposed to say yuck, a non-kosher steak, yuck, with French fries, ugh. Right, and some good non-Jewish wine. Oof. Right, we're not supposed to do that. We're supposed to, yeah, boy, that looks good, and it looks good. Smells good, probably tastes good too, but I'm not allowed to. I'm not allowed to. I'd like to, but I'm not allowed to. That's the level most of us are at, and it's a very admirable level that it's a temptation, and I'm not allowed to be involved. There's a higher level where we could actually get to, not that our free choice is taken away. We take away our free choice. Not that our choice, not that it's taken away by Hashem. We actually get to a level where our free choice, where we take away our own free choice. And this goes to a fundamental concept what Rav Dessler calls the scale of free choice. Have you ever heard the concept? The sliding scale of free choice. What that means is, right now, what's my test? Right now, my test, if you put a piece of pork on the table, I could say with fairly confidence about myself, it's not even a test for me. Remember I told you about smoking on Shabbos? Smoking on Shabbos wasn't even a test. It wasn't even a test. I'm not going to smoke on Shabbos. Havdalah, the minute Shabbos is over, you like, one in the mouth, one in the ear, two in the nostrils, you got something, you got to make up for some time. But it's not even a test. Pork's not even a test. What is a test for me? A test for me is when I get up in the morning and I'm a little bit tired, am I going to haul off to Slichos and make it on time? Or am I going to dray around a little bit and come in a little bit late with about 5 minutes left to Slichos? That's a test. That was a test. And any similarities to real life are purely intentional because that was the test I had this morning, right? And we haul off to that. That's a test. Sometimes it's a test, am I going to bench with kavanah or am I going to kind of run through the bench because I'm a little tired? Those are tests. Each person at his level. When a person passes a test, so then the scale shifts and now the test becomes something at a higher level. Of course I'm going to bench with kavanah. The question is if I'm going to invoke all of the Kabbalistic secrets of the Arizal in my kavanah. Now I'm being tested on that. And if I fail a test, like let's say there's a product, it's got a dubious hechsher. It's got a hechsher, but it's a dubious. I really shouldn't be eating this product because I'm not sure about the hechsher, but I eat the product anyway. The next day, there's a product that doesn't have any hechsher at all, and all I do is I read the ingredients and say, I don't see anything treif about this, which I really shouldn't be doing. And the next day, the person eats treif because the scale is like, that becomes his test. Moshe Rabbeinu is saying that a person could actually get to a point, it's not even a test for me, that's the highest level. To do God's will isn't even a test for me anymore. It's not even a test. God didn't take away my free will. We took away our own free will by being so good that it doesn't even, that's the highest level. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu is saying. Lo uchal. There's just no way that I could, what do you call it? There's just no way that that I could do this. It's not going to happen. That's why I've told you in the past, in Yiddishkeit, we should get to a point where our observance is automatic. It's automatic that I'm going to put on tefillin today. It's automatic that I'm going to go to shul. It's automatic that I'm going to study Torah today. But it should not be mechanical. It should be automatic, but not mechanical. It's automatic that I'm going to on tefillin. The act of putting on tefillin shouldn't be mechanical. It should be with at least a little bit of thought of what I'm doing. I am now fulfilling a mitzvah, and I'm putting on a badge of honor, something. But not just mechanical, go through the motions where a person doesn't even know if he's wrapping him on or taking him off. Sometimes the person takes 3 steps forward and 3 steps back. I don't remember my starting Shemona Esrei, finishing Shemona Esrei. That was a humdinger of a Shemona Esrei. So it should be automatic, but not mechanical, that we should go through. And when I say not mechanical, it doesn't mean false emotion either. That's also not. We're not into this, that sort of thing to pretend. We're not into that. I'm not talking about the external. I'm talking about a little bit of feeling. Think about it for a second. Think about what I'm doing when I'm putting on tefillin. For 1 second, think about what I'm doing when I make kiddush on Shabbos. For just 1 second to make a declaration that we're the chosen people, and Lord, it's a testimony that God created the world. For one fleeting second, without announcing it, without showing it to everybody else how righteous we are, just to make okay. That's idea number 1. Idea number 2. Where are we here? Okay. Now, take a look. Moshe Rabbeinu now speaks to Yoshua. I'm going to tell you a shocker. Now you're going to hear a shocker. So it takes a look like this. Moshe Rabbeinu speaks to the Jewish people, and he says, strengthen yourself. Pasuk Vav. Chizku ve'imtzu. Strengthen yourselves. Al tiro ve'al tartzu mipneim. Don't be afraid of the enemies. Ki Hashem Elokecha hu alechi imach lo yarpecha v'lo yazecha. Hashem will not release you. He's not going to let you go. He's going to take care of you. Okay. Now, right in the middle of the page. Vayikra Moshe liYoshua. Moshe calls Yoshua. Vayomer Elav le'inei kol Yisrael. Moshe says to him in front of all the Jewish people, Chazak ve'ematz, be strong. Ki atotovo es ha'am hazeh l'oretz asher nishba Hashem la'avosam l'seislam. You're going to bring this people to the land that God has chosen them. V'atotan chilena osam, and you're also going to distribute it to. You're going to bring them to the land and you're going to divide it up. So the Medrash talks about how Yoshua was pleading to Moshe Rabbeinu, please don't do this to me. You're the Rebbe. You're the Rebbe. I'm the disciple. And now Moshe Rabbeinu at one point says to Hashem says, okay, now I want you to put Yoshua, put him in charge, put the crown on him, put him on the main throne, and you sit in front of him like a disciple. And Yoshua says, Rebbe, please don't do this to me. Can you imagine? Moshe Rabbeinu and Yoshua who worships Moshe Rabbeinu. And now Moshe Rabbeinu says, no, you're going to be the leader. Now the Meshech Chochmah, who this yeshiva is named after, the Ohr Somayach, so he says the following. This pasuk could be read in two ways. The first way to read it is the plain meaning. Vayikra Moshe leYoshua, Moshe calls Yoshua. Vayomer Lov le'nei kol Yisrael, he says to him in front of the Jewish people, Chazak ve'ematz, be strong and be bold and strong. But there's a double message here. You see, Moshe Rabbeinu Yeshua is Moshe's disciple. What was Moshe Rabbeinu's primary trait? Humility. So if Moshe Rabbeinu was humble, he had his disciple. What's the qualification of being a disciple? One of the qualifications is humility. See, Yeshua is also a very humble person. Says Moshe Rabbeinu. Now there's a problem. When you want to be if you're going to be a communal leader, so then, you have to, there are certain halachas. Do you know that a king, for example, the king of the Jewish people, no one is allowed to, a king is not allowed to forego his honor. A Rebbe could forego his honor. A parent could forego their honor. A parent could say to you, don't stand. Your father could say, don't stand up for me when I walk into the room. They won't, by the way. And you should do it when you're home. You should stand up for your father. When he walks into the room, you should stand up for your father. Guys have said to me, no, he'll feel awkward. No, he won't. He'll feel great. You'll feel awkward. He'll feel great. It's like father comes in, the first time it happens, if you've never done it, then the first time it happens, your father walk in the room and you'll stand up. Your father's going to be one, he's going to try it again. So he'll walk out of the room and see it again. Then he comes in and you stand up. You go, why'd you just stand up for me? Well, Dad, you deserve my honor and respect. So after he faints, right, then after he faints, he's going to say, you know what? I don't know what they brainwashed you with that Jew cult over there in Israel. You're going back. You're going back. I like this. So a father could tell you, don't stand up. By the way, even if he says don't, you should. You should until he gets upset. Because often he'll say, no, you don't have to. No means bring it on. Right? So stand up for him. Father could forego his honor. A Rebbe could forego his honor. A king cannot forego his honor. Because the king's honor belongs to the Jewish people. And the king is not allowed to tell you don't stand up. The Gemara says you're not allowed to watch a king get a haircut. Do you know that?
Why?
Because in the old days, haircuts were considered something. Nowadays, haircuts the most fancy thing you could possibly do. You had a haircut. Ooh. You go to some guy with a French accent, and that drives up the price by about $30, especially if he calls it styled. See, I had my hair styled, by the way. My hair isn't cut; it's styled. Right? That's why I pay extra $30 to have it styled over here. See, it's been styled. So good. I got that off my chest. The what do you call it? Yeah, it's a compromised position. You're not allowed to watch a king when he's in the bathhouse. It's a compromise. You don't see a king in a compromise. A king has to look dignified all the time. And I tell husbands, by the way, when you get married, you should walk around the house with a tie. Don't walk around the house with your t-shirt out looking like an Italian. Walk around the house with a tie. Because your wife will respect you. Remember, she knows you well enough not to respect you. So give her something that she should respect, because she knows the truth. Instead of walking around with them, walking around like something that got blown out of a vacuum cleaner. Walk around looking around, look with a little dignity, right? People respect it. That's why when you go for a job interview, how do you dress? You've been in college for 4 years, and you go for a job interview. All of a sudden, this guy who basically was a double of Tarzan for the last 4 years, and he looks like a cross between Tarzan and Samson with long hair. And all of a sudden, he's all shaven and clean and put together, going for what? You think the guy behind the desk doesn't know that until this point you were essentially a savage? You think he doesn't know that? And all of a sudden, you're coming in for your first interview. There he is. Wow, he's so fine, refined, and put together. Yeah, we didn't see you at the last college party, did they? right? When you didn't know right side up from upside down, right? But at the end of the day, it makes an impression. Everybody in the world wears a uniform. Why do people wear uniforms? Uniform is not only for the person. Uniform is also the impression it makes on other people. When you see people in uniform, like, ooh, he's got a uniform. Ooh. You ever go to buy glasses? The lady who's selling you glasses wears a lab coat. Oh, she must know what she's doing because she's wearing a lab coat. Oh, she's official. It makes an impression. So the king, a rav of a community, do you know there's a halacha, the rav of a community cannot be seen doing work in his community? He's not allowed to do any manual labor in front of the community members. Because then you lose respect for him. He's the rav of the community. He's a man who you have to ask shilos, sometimes life and death questions. And he's not allowed to be seen doing any sort of manual labor. It's a halacha in Shulchan Aruch.
What about for Sukkot, like he's helping build the sukkah?
That's a mitzvah. That's a mitzvah. That's something else. For a mitzvah, it's something else. Manual labor, and even that, I'm not sure. You know what? I'm not sure if he can be seen doing that. I'm not sure. I don't know. But he certainly can't be seen doing. We had a rav in our community who is one of the biggest poskim today in not only Yerushalayim and Eretz Yisrael today, and extremely humble person, does not care a lick about his personal honor. Doesn't he? I know him. He lives upstairs from me. Does not care a lick about his personal honor. He's not interested in it. But I remember he used to give a shir on Shabbos. And what happened was, as the Rav, he has a special chair that he sits in. And he would give a shir on Shabbos in the back room, and somebody would bring him the chair. Somebody would bring his chair, and he would sit in his chair when he gave the shir. After the shir, we'd go daven mincha. And he would go up to daven mincha, and he never picked up the chair. And if somebody forgot to bring it, so he would just wouldn't sit in that chair till somebody would remember. He wasn't allowed to bring the chair over. He's not allowed to even pick up a chair. He's the Rav of the Kehillah. It's got a certain status. So what's Moshe Rabbeinu saying to Yeshua? Read the pasuk now. Vayikra Moshe leYeshua vayomer elav le'enei kol Yisrael. You may be very humble, but when the people are watching you, Chazak ve'ematz, you got to conduct yourself with strength and force. What you do behind the scenes and in your own heart, you could be the most humble person in the world, but you're taking on a responsibility now that you're going to be the leader of the Jewish people. So it has a double meaning. Number one, he's talking to him in front of the Jewish people. And number two, he's telling him when you're in front of the Jewish people and they see you as a leader, what you do in your back room over there and inside in your own heart, you can be the most humble person in the world. Don't let it go to your head. I once had a rabbi told me in a very unpleasant situation where I was at fault, actually. And he said to me that he's not going to let the rabbinate be his position of the rabbinate to be stepped on. I had insulted him, but it was unintentional, possibly. And it was a long time ago. We're talking about I wasn't even married yet. And he said to me, I'm not going to let my rabbinate be stepped on. Well, he was right. He was 100% right. I was wrong. And others have said, a rabbi or a rav, you have to take the position seriously. Don't take yourself too seriously. All right? The President of the United States, I don't know if you guys know, Jimmy Carter was once the president. Jimmy Carter with that smile. The big teethy smile. You ever see his smile? The fakest smile you've ever seen in your life. Like that. An anti-Semite. A no good Nick. So Jimmy Carter, when he was the president, he became president. He wanted to make the impression that he's like everybody's man type of thing. So he wore golf shirts, and he carried his own bag onto the airport. And they had pictures of him wearing, a regular pullover going with 3 buttons, a golf shirt, and he's carrying his own like suitcase onto the thing to show I'm just like everybody else. His ratings plummeted. I don't want to see the president in a golf shirt. And if a president had brains, he'd put on a crown. If Trump gets elected, he probably will, right? But if a president had brains, he'd put on a crown. It's very impressive. I want to see a man of dignity. I didn't elect you to be a golfer. I could have done that to myself. So Moshe Rabbeinu is telling you got to carry that dignity. Now, watch this. Take a step. He tells Yeshua about that Hashem will be with him. And then take a look on the next page. Sorry. Where is it? Yeah. First of all, Pasuk Yud Beis. It's on page 1096. And Moshe Rabbeinu says that once every 7 years, at the end of the 7th year, and at the end of Sukkot of the 8th year, there's a gathering of the Jewish people in the Beis Hamikdash. Sukkot of the 8th year, meaning the first year of the Shemitah cycle. It's called the 8th year because it's after the 7th year. Every Motzei Sukkot, the first Yontif of Sukkot, on Motzei Sukkot, the Jewish people gather in the Beis Hamikdash. And this is called the Mitzvah of Hakhel. And then it says on the next page, Pasuk Yud Beis, second line, Hakhel es ha'am, gather the people, ha'anoshim ve'hanoshim ve'ataf, the men, the women, and the children, v'gercha asher b'sharecha, and all of your converts, l'man yishma'u, l'man yilmadu v'yoru es Hashem Elokeichem, they should learn to fear God, Hashem your God, v'shamru lasos es kol divrei HaTorah azos. That means once in 7 years, the king, on Motzei Yom Kippur, Sukkot, the first Yontif of Sukkot, the king in the sanctuary of the Beis Hamikdash would pull out a sefer, they played a sefer Torah, and he would read from the sefer Torah to the people. And who would come? The pasuk says, the men, the women, and the children. Take a look at Rashi. It's the right column of Rashi, second line. If you find it, please show the person next to you. Right column, second line. Says Rashi, ha'anoshim lilmod, the men to learn. What are they coming for? The men are to learn. V'hanoshim, the women, lishmoa, to hear. V'hataf, what about the children? What are children doing there? They run around, they give them candies. I mean, what are the children doing in the Beis Hamikdash? You have the Beis Hamikdash candy man, just like in the shul. You know, the old guy who gives the kids candy. First he teases them and eventually gives them candy, right? What are the children doing there? Lama bo, what did they come for? Loses schar lemivieim, to give reward to those who bring them. Somebody once said, well, what are you going to do with the kids? The parents are all there. Somebody's got to babysit with the kids. What are you going to do with them? So you bring them to the Beis. No. You bring them to the Beis Hamikdash to give reward to those who bring them. What does that mean? Why are you getting rewarded for bringing your kids? Listen carefully. So first of all, I want to tell you something about what's the difference between what it says about. It says about the men to learn and the women to hear. What's the difference between learning and hearing? What's the difference? It says the men come to learn. What's that?
Active and passive.
Active and passive. That means a man learns, you really got to go. What about a woman? She doesn't need that. All she needs to do is hear it. I want to give you a piece of advice. When you're married, you've been at Shabbos tables. The husband's saying a Dvar Torah, and the wife, she maybe get up all of a sudden to go into the kitchen to get the kugel or to check on something, go to check on the baby, and you're saying something, and men sometimes get annoyed. She's not listening. Usually women get up as soon as the husband starts talking because she knows it's going to be boring. But assuming she was listening, now she gets up and I'm in the middle of talking. What are you getting up for? There's a rule. Somebody gave me this advice when I first got married. Keep talking. Just keep talking. Pretend like they hear. They have that ability. They hear. They're hearing everything. I was like, she's walking back and forth. She's in the kitchen, coming back, and she corrects you in the middle while she's carrying a platter of cholent. She's correcting you. It even happens with stories. My wife, last week, Wednesday, we went and also hear a voice, it was Tuesday. Right? They're great at that. They're great at nailing you on the insignificant details. Like it doesn't really matter. I'm talking about how I broke up a kidnapping. It was a kidnapping, and I jumped on. It was a 69 bus. It was a 59. Oh, that's an important detail in this story. So you're telling a Dvar Torah, talk. They hear. They have that ability. We don't. If a man is distracted, we're out of sight. If we're distracted by something that we're interested in. So if you're watching a football game, the world ceases to exist. There is nothing more going on in the world. Somebody says to you, by the way, nuclear war just started. Not now, he's about to kick a field goal. Just wait. For men, I'm doing something important right now. For women, they can, what's it called, multitask?
Yeah.
They can multitask. Okay, now I want to tell you something else, just so you should know we're not male chauvinists. Have you ever heard the statement that Gemara in Shabbos says that when Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was on the run, so the Romans were trying to get Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Before he went to the cave, where did he go? He went to a shul. He was hiding with his son Elazar. They were hiding in a shul. And then the search, the Roman pressure increased. So Shimon Bar Yochai said, Nashim daitan kalos alehem, which literally means women are light-minded, and she might not be able to withstand the pressure. We have to go, and that's when they ran to the cave. And they hid in the cave for 12 years, then 13th year, okay? What does it mean, Nashim Daitan Kalos Alehem? Women are light-minded. So the cynics think that it's a derogatory, some sort of put down of women, that women do not have the same intelligence of men. Chas v'sholom. First of all, I know women who are so smart they could pack the whole bunch of us into, yeah, not too many, but there are. Yeah, women who are mathematicians, they're brilliant, they're also, it's nothing. In general, and this comes from the secular world, not from the Torah, even without hearing the Torah perspective, from the secular world, they have found that there is a difference in the brain development of men and women. If I'm not mistaken, men have a greater distance between the part of the mind that creates emotion and the part of the brain that combines with the part of the mind that creates logical thought. There's a wider gap. Women, it's closer, which they use to explain why often there's a crossover between the emotion and the logic. And there's no question that in the hard sciences, as a rule, in the hard sciences, men seem to do better in the hard sciences, and in the soft sciences, in the humanities, women destroy the men. They've even done studies on map reading. Map reading, which measures something called spatial skills, S-P-A-T-I-A-L. And map reading, men by far better than women. There's a stereotypical scenario where the husband's driving and the wife's looking at a map and he says, I don't know, and the husband takes the map, he goes like that. You know, you've seen that on a million TV shows. But they've also done studies where they take a face, of somebody who's experiencing an emotion, a strong emotion, and they distort the face, they distort the image, and they give it to men and women to look, what is the emotion that's being experienced right now? Happiness, sadness, pain, that sort of thing. The women demolish the men across the board. Man takes a look at it, wow, he just heard a good joke. No, he just dropped a bowling ball on his foot. You know, and the women demolish the men across the board. So there are differences, nothing good. What does it mean, Nashan Daitan Kalos Aleim? And not only that, we talk about being serious about something to koved rosh, heavy-headedness. You know what the difference is? When a man is doing something, a man is focused. If I'm trying to figure something out, the last thing I want is to be any sort of distraction. I want quiet. I don't want kids running around in the background. I don't want anybody talking to me. Now's not the time to ask me for money or the credit card. I'm focused. I'm trying to figure something out. A woman, there's something called multitasking. She effortlessly glides from one thing to another. Watch a woman in the home with children. She puts a cake in the oven, then she runs over because the baby's crying, then she comes back to check on the cake, and then she has to go change a diaper, then she starts mixing she starts putting up the chicken, in the meantime the phone rings and she takes it. She never gets rattled. She just effortlessly, kalos aleim. That means they kind of hover above it lightly without getting too intensely focused where you can't get their attention. Now, it doesn't mean they never do, and it doesn't mean all women. We're not talking about in generalizations. There are some men who are all over the place. Right? We're talking about in generalizations. So the women come to hear. They don't need that kind of focus, man, to absorb it. A man needs low mode. You got to be into it totally in order to absorb it. Because if you're doing this during shear, you don't hear anything. Whereas a woman could hear and do this and do that and do the other, and she could absorb it all. The children, to give reward to those who bring them. What does that mean? So I'll tell you, Gemara. The Gemara in Chagiga says, you've heard of Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya, Rabbi Akiva's Rebbe. So there are two Tanaim came back from the Beis Medrash, and Rabbi Yeshua said to them, what lesson was taught today in the Beis Medrash? So they said to Rabbi Yeshua, you're our Rebbe, you shouldn't be asking us, to teach you, you should teach. He says, listen, still, every Beis Medrash, there was a lesson taught, you could learn something new. So they said to him that the lesson in the Beis Medrash was this quote from Rashi, this comes from Tanaim. That why did they bring the children to the Beis Medrash? Because to give reward to those who brought them. This quote from Rashi, that's what they told him. It's a Gemara in Chagiga. So Gemara says, Rabbi Yeshua says, wow, you had such a precious gem and you would have withheld it from me, the gem of wisdom, and you would have withheld it from me had I not asked you. That's what the Gemara says. The question is, Why was Rabbi Yeshua so enamored with that particular vort? Was something about that really spoke to him? So the Meshech Chochmah says that the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, the Medrash says, when Rabbi Yeshua was a baby in the cradle, his mother brought his cradle into the Beis Medrash so that as a baby he should hear words of Torah. So when he heard this, the parents bring the children, and to get rewarded, he thought of mom. That's what she did for me. She brought. Now, what does it do to put a baby's ears in the Beis Medrash? He's just a baby. Something. It does something. If you remember, there were 3 sisters. I think they were Hungarian, if I'm not mistaken, Romanian or Hungarian, whose parents read to them while they were in the womb. The baby, when the mother was pregnant, the parents would read to the baby, to the unborn child, and all 3 of these girls became chess champions. You remember hearing about that?
Yeah, I think they were Hungarian.
They were Hungarian, and the parents claim it's okay. We don't know whether they were or weren't. Whether it could be they played chess in the womb. We don't know exactly what it is. The point is that we don't know what a baby's absorbing and hearing. And if a baby's ears are only hearing Torah and Kedusha, some people, when the baby in the crib, the people put a picture of the Chafetz Chaim in the crib. Let the baby look at the Chafetz Chaim. Instead of looking at his older brother, let him look at the Chafetz Chaim. We don't know what. So here the Torah says you get reward for bringing your children, because by bringing them to the Beis Hamikdash, something's going to happen. And that's why you've seen in certain shuls kids run around. If you go to a Hasidic shtibel, you ever go to a Hasidic shtibel for davening on Shabbos? What are the kids doing? They're all over the place, right? And if you ever go shh, people would shush you for shushing the kids. You know why? They're creating a situation. The kids should learn shul's your house. Shul is your second home. Yeah, eventually you'll daven. If your father davens, could be your father's running around too. But it's training for the kids. That's the idea. Now I want to show you. This is the one I wanted to get to. This is a real shocker. Let's see if you get this. Vayomer Hashem al Moshe hein korvu yamecha lamus. Your days are coming close to the end, Moshe. You're about to die. Pasuk Yudalid. The Medrash says that Hashem kept telling him, okay, Moshe, you got 5 hours left, 4 hours left, 2 hours left. There was a countdown over it. The Medrash says there was a whole countdown. Kroes Yoshua v'isiatzu be'ol call Yoshua, go to the Ol Moed, v'atzavenu, and I will give him the charge now. Vayeilech Moshe v'Yoshua v'yitziatzu be'ol Moed. They went to the Ol Moed, to the tent of meeting, and now Yoshua is going to get the prophecy from God. So the Medrash said that Moshe Rabbeinu said to Hashem, among his begging, when he was begging Hashem to go into Eretz Yisrael, he said, listen, let me go in as a bird, let me go in as a fish, let me go in there. Moshe Rabbeinu want to go. No. He said, okay, I got an idea. Let Yoshua will be the leader, I'll be his disciple. He'll be the Rebbe and I'll be his disciple. And Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, you won't be able to handle it. He said, I'll handle it, just let me do that, let me go in, we'll switch roles. So Hashem said, okay. So they go to the Ol Moed. And when they get to the tent, Moshe Rabbeinu is now the disciple, he has to wait outside. Yoshua goes in where the Shekhinah is, where the divine presence is. And he gets the communication. And then Yoshua comes out. And Hashem says to Yoshua, Moshe Rabbeinu said to Yoshua, what did Hashem say to you? And Yoshua said to Moshe Rabbeinu, all those years that you were the Rebbe, did I ever ask you what Hashem said to you? At that point, Moshe Rabbeinu said to Hashem, better 100 deaths than one moment of jealousy. Okay, that's what the Medrash says, right? What's the obvious problem, Miguel? Nothing bother you about that?
It's
Rude. That could be. He's a human being. The pain of the jealousy. Maybe he wasn't jealous per se, but you know, what about the? I mean, Yeshua. That's how you talk to your Rebbe. I mean, it could be a little. That's what you say. What did Hashem say? Well, all those years, I beg your pardon. All those years that you got the prophecy, did I ask you?
No, but Hashem told it to say.
Oh, very good. That's exactly what the prophecy was. The prophecy was, say these words to Moshe Rabbeinu. Believe me, Yeshua did not want to say those words to Moshe Rabbeinu. What did Hashem say to you? He would have loved to say, well, Hashem said to me to tell you, but he couldn't say that. It's like the father gets a knock at the door, and some guy's coming to collect tzedakah. The kid says, Daddy, somebody's at the door to collect tzedakah. He says, tell him I'm not home. So the kid goes and says, my father said to tell you he's not home. No, kid. No. So what happened over here? What happened over here? That was the prophecy. Hashem said to Yeshua, tell Moshe the following words, quote, nothing more and nothing less. All those years you were the leader that I ever asked you. That was what he was told to say. Why? So that Moshe Rabbeinu would feel, well, you say he can't be jealous? Moshe Rabbeinu is still a human being. He will feel that he's not going to be able to withstand this. If this is what it involves, and at that point Moshe Rabbeinu says, better 100 deaths than one moment of jealousy. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu says to Kosh Baruch Hu. Okay, Wednesday, tomorrow I won't be here. Wednesday, Mirz Hashem, we're going to do Rosh Hashanah a little bit.